All right, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
All right. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Smack Talk Live. I am Coach along with Lone Wolf. And Lone Wolf, I'm getting kind of tired of it because this is supposed to be a sports show, but the sports world continues to take, and it's not just our show. Um,
Right.
every sports media outlet into non-sports related topics.
Yeah.
Um, so we'll end with that story with the stuff the NFL is doing,
Right.
um, because I think there's a storyline there that not many people are talking about that I think could really hurt the NFL depending on how they react to it. So
I agree. Yeah. Yep.
I'll talk about that later. Let's we'll briefly go over you know the NBA playoffs here, and then baseball
Yeah. I
again.
had a couple things that, I wanted to mention about that, and then hockey briefly as well. So,
So we were texting before.
yeah.
Um, the Milwaukee Bucks are on the brink. Um,
Yeah.
they don't look interested. They don't look focused. And I really think that I'm not accusing them of intentionally losing, but I don't think they care if they lose because I think this is their statement to everybody about the social justice reforms they want and the systemic racism and all that stuff. It's just they didn't want to boycott it, but I mean, you get
It has that
outscored.
feel in a way, kind of. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, it's because it's a fine line, right? When you say that, it's like, well, are they really doing that? Can you prove it? No, but
Right.
yeah.
But when you are up in the fourth quarter and you get outscored 40-13,
Yeah. They just
40
got
to
owned in the
13,
fourth quarter. Owned in the fourth quarter is bad.
that is really just not caring at that point. I, there's
Because
no
you can't tell me, coach. I mean, you're going to agree with me. There's no way that you can say the Miami Heat are that much better than the Bucks that they could just crush them like that in the fourth quarter. I understand that there's a lot of articles out there about how this happened. I mean, it feels like, yeah, maybe they stopped trying, maybe they didn't try as hard. I mean, you can't get destroyed in a quarter like that in a professional basketball game in a playoff series and just be playing poorly. There has to be more to it than that, I think.
right because here's the thing: the first three quarters they outscored the Heat every other quarter.
Right.
So all of a sudden the Heat got that good. I
Yeah.
mean, I really don't think their purpose is winning the title right now. They even came out and said it that these playoffs from now on are bigger than winning. They're bigger than just playing, and that takes
Yeah.
us into this other topic of you're pushing the fans away. And it
Right.
might to people listening, it's going to sound like I don't care. It's not that I don't care about the bad stuff that's going on.
Right.
It's reality. An article that came out and a survey done with um, fans, viewership is down. 38% of fans are no longer watching games
Yeah.
because of all of this stuff. 38%. And
Well,
I don't think this is a blip on the screen where all of a sudden next season the people are gonna be like, oh, okay, let's start watching again.
right.
Because I don't
Yeah.
think that this stuff's going away.
Each league has to look at, we were talking about this, each league has to look at the casual fan and draw in the casual fan. There's always going to be your diehard fans no matter what. So how do you draw in the casual fan? Well, right now you're turning off a lot of those people and they're not watching. I mean, yes, I mean, they may care about social issues, but when they turn on the basketball game, they're looking to watch the basketball game and they're looking to see a competitive game. So, not that those guys can't make social statements. We talked about that, but at the same time, yeah, you're probably turning off a lot of casual fans in what's going on. So
Yeah.
it's
So
it's hard. I mean, I don't blame guys for having an opinion, but
right. But again, we talked about this last week at
yeah,
nauseum, is that you are an entertainer. You are there to entertain people and give
right,
them a break from reality.
right.
That's why
And
people watch.
we don't mean that in a bad way, in a
Right.
racist way. We just mean that in that's your job. I mean, your job is to go out there and play basketball to the best of your ability.
Right. So the Bucks, unless they win 4 in a row, they're done. They have one more year with guaranteed with Giannis. We'll see what happens. Um, the Celtics and Raptors are in a decent series. And then the Lakers,
Yeah.
Rockets are just getting started. And so with the was it the
The
Clippers
Clippers
and
and the
the Nuggets?
Nuggets. Yeah.
So the
Both
West is
really
really
good
just
first
getting
round
going.
series, and now I don't know with these next. I mean, the Celts I think are up 2-0, unless they had, I don't know what happened if they had a third game yet, but the Celtics are at least up 2-0. So
I think it's 2-1.
oh,
I
2-1 now. Okay,
think
all
it's
right,
2-1 now.
okay,
So yeah, yeah. To be honest, even if the Bucks rebound and win 4 in a row,
yeah,
unless they get their heads out of you know where,
right,
this is going to be a championship for the West. Whatever team comes out of the West is going to win. And
right,
I don't
yeah,
think the Celtics and the Raptors are championship caliber teams this
right.
year, and the Bucks just aren't playing well, or
Yeah,
just don't care at this point.
one way or the other.
And
Yeah,
I think whatever team comes out of the West is really it's going to be like a 5-6 game series, and it's not even going to be fun to watch. So,
right. I
um,
agree.
anything else with the NBA, Lone Wolf? Because I really don't want to get on the soapbox with everything again.
No, the only thing I was gonna say from a basketball standpoint is if you're a basketball aficionado, the Lakers Rockets series is one that we anticipate the Lakers would win, but where does it go for James Harden? I mean, the guy makes the playoffs all the time, but if they lose this series yet again, then he has another postseason disappointment. And does he stick around in Houston? I don't know if he's under contract or not. I didn't look, but I mean, this just has to be chapping him, sitting there in the Western Conference, constantly getting into playoff series and making it to that second round and losing. I just think that's an interesting storyline. So I'd be interesting to see what happens with that series, and if they lose again, what does he do in his future?
Right, exactly. Um, Harden's getting butter right now, so there you go.
All right,
Uh,
well, that's
and that's the
good.
thing, I would not be surprised if
Yeah,
Harden plays out his mind. The Rockets win that series. I really think again, and I don't think it's just the Bucks. I think there are certain teams
yeah,
out there that didn't want to continue the playoffs
right.
because of all this other stuff, and they're just going through the motions. And that's kind of their boycott of everything.
Yeah, yeah, I know what you
Um,
mean. Yeah,
we can't prove it, but I mean,
right.
come on. I know you said that you were afraid of the Heat and the Bucks, but I wouldn't expect the Bucks to be down 3-0.
Oh no, not at all. I mean, the
So
Heat don't. I'm not disrespecting them. They're a decent team, but they are not a dominate the Bucks 3-0 and dominate them in games like this kind of team. They're just not that good. But
So
apparently they are. I don't know. Yeah.
yeah, so we'll see. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. If the Rockets don't get to the finals,
Right.
what happens there. And
Yeah.
here's a question for you, Lone Wolf. If you're the Bucks, you seriously have to go to Giannis and basically say, we know you can't sign the deal here, but
Right.
we need under the table verbal commitment that you're re-signing with us
Yeah.
if you're going to. And if you don't, okay, that's fine. But then the Bucks have to think of this. Do we go out and get a second superstar to pair with them at least for one season
Mm-hmm.
to try to win a title, or do you trade Giannis to get at least something for him?
Yeah. Honestly, I mean, I would rather go out and get a superstar and try to
Right.
win a title because you've got the chance right now. Right now is your window. If you trade him, then you're sliding back into maybe being a playoff team, but you're never going to be a championship contender without a player of his caliber.
Right, exactly. Now, if he comes and says, "Oh no, I'm committing to Milwaukee,"
Right.
then you don't have to make the splash. But if he doesn't commit to Milwaukee, you have to make a decision. You can't just
Yeah.
go play out the season and then all of a sudden he leaves. You didn't win a title, and now you don't get anything.
Yeah.
I don't think Bucks ownership is like that anymore. I think that new ownership group's pretty good, but we'll
Right.
see.
Yeah. We'll find out in
Um,
the off season. Right.
as for baseball, trade deadline's coming up.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I looked at the standings. I didn't see anything really too overly shocking. Um,
Yeah.
it's still. We talked about this last week. The shortened season still didn't make me excited to follow baseball,
Right.
and probably won't be until for another 2 3 weeks when they get to about 10 games left.
Right.
Um, I don't know if you have any thoughts on the current baseball season.
Well, the only thing I was gonna say is the one team I think that kind of stands out to me as a bit of a surprise is the Washington Nationals. I didn't think that they would be in last place. Right now they're not. They're not looking very good. They're not playing very good, and they're 12-23 or something like that. So to me, that's a little bit of a surprise. I expected, whenever you're in that situation, I expect a fall off, but they had a major fall off, and I get it. The roster is not the same, but still, that's a pretty big turnaround from last year. And not that they were the best team in the league record wise last year, but still, this is a pretty drastic shift.
So, but here's the one thing in baseball,
Yeah,
you can get that team every now and then for a season gets hot and
sure,
everybody's having a career year and you make a run and win a title, but you're really not that good.
sure,
And then you kind of revert back to what you should be. Not
right,
saying the Nationals should be that bad, but um, you know, like you said, that they probably weren't really the best team in the league last year,
they
but
weren't,
they were playing the best baseball,
right,
and that's all it takes in sport. You need to be playing the best in the postseason. Get into the postseason, and then be playing, whatever league it is, be playing the best, and you're probably going to win.
yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah. They were
um,
hot at the right time, yeah. So
NHL, I kind of lost track there with everything going on, and school started this week. So I kind of lost track on the NHL playoffs where they're at.
well,
Um,
I'll tell you, and this is a prediction. I don't know. This is going to be tough. You got to make the call. Your Golden Knights against the Vancouver Canucks. They're tied at 3 apiece. Game 7's coming up. What do you got? What do you got here?
well, I'm gonna have the. Here's the thing: it's tough to make these calls on these games
Yeah,
because there's no home ice advantage. You know,
Right. No, I know. Yeah. Yeah.
usually you can say, I'm going to take the home team. Um, but you can't do that. You know, you
Right.
just can't do that right now. Um, I'd like to say that the Knights are going to win it, but um,
Because the Canucks came
I'll
back
go with
from
the
three
Knights.
one down and they tied the series up. So
Right. So I'll go with the Golden Knights going to pull it off. I'll make a prediction there. So
well, and I think they have a really good chance of doing that based on everything that I've read. Um, they have had it good in their first couple of years in the league. Um, and wouldn't it be cool if they, would make a run this year and maybe even win the title? That'd be awesome,
well, yeah, I
for a
mean,
newer
year
franchise.
one, you lose, heartbreaker in the Stanley Cup Finals, and now you're sitting here, stay in the second round of the West, playoffs, but being able to make a playoff run and be a stable and competitive playoff team only 2 years into the league, it's pretty impressive. Just looking at it right now, towards the end of the second period, tied at 0. So um, we'll may have an update before the end of the show on that.
Right, to see
So,
how that turns out. Yep.
all right. So takes us. Well, let's talk about the topic your father wants us to cover.
Right. Yep. We got to get to the local sport angle here. Talk about the WIAA and what's going on in local sports.
And we will then we'll end with NFL talk because there's we have player cut downs.
Yeah, there were a couple notable player cut downs that we
Yeah,
can talk about and some other
yeah,
things too. Yeah. Yep.
and we'll go through that stuff. But so for the people that don't know or haven't been listening, we are both located in the state of Wisconsin. Um, we had our football, soccer, and volleyball seasons delayed. We usually start at the beginning of August. They're delayed now till Monday. We officially start our practices. About 2.5 weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks ago now, our state organization, I'm just going to say that, Lone Wolf, because I have to be
I
politically
know.
correct since I am a coach, had a meeting and made the determination that you could play your fall sports in the spring, but they were not going to shift the spring sports into the summer. So there would be an overlap,
Right.
4 week overlap. Um, and obviously I'm in a smaller school. It causes a lot of issues because you have a lot of athletes that do both a fall and spring sport.
Mm-hmm.
Myself, I coach both football and track, so you run into a coaching issue.
Yeah.
And instead of the I'm not going to say, instead of the state saying
Yeah.
we're going to do X, Y, and Z, they gave schools the option.
Right.
Um, and I just read the article, 68% of the schools in Wisconsin are playing fall sports,
Mm-hmm.
which I think is good.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's good for communities, for the kids, um, to have some type of normalcy in their lives. Because we talked about just the mental health aspect and how, the effects that all this stuff is having on those
Yeah.
kids.
Yeah. In a previous show, we talked about that. Yeah.
So I think that's the right call. A lot of schools obviously did not. Um, and we've asked our organization if, what are we doing for state tournament? And we have yet to receive a response. Now, there are some very high profile, I'm just going to use football as the example because that's what I coach in the fall. We have some very high profiled high school football schools that are going in the spring. And again, I don't have any evidence that this is happening, but I can guarantee those schools are trying to get it where the state organization will have the official state championships in the spring and not in the fall.
Sure. So you play in the fall, and great for you because you have a season, but it's not really the official championship for 2020.
Right, because the
Yeah.
bigger schools that decide to go in the spring want it that way.
Sure.
Now,
Well,
we're
there's
all
less competition
obviously,
too, I would assume, right?
well, here's the thing. They're going to have a hard time finding games in the spring because you only have 32% of schools going in the spring.
Right.
And it's not all larger schools.
Yeah. Yeah.
You have a lot of larger schools going in the fall. Notre Dame's going in the fall. It wasn't based off of your conference. Is each school got to make their own decision.
Right.
For my school, our conference all decided for ease of scheduling, we were either all going to go in the spring or we were all going in the fall.
Sure. So you just did it as a group and said, this is what we're going to do. Yep.
Right. Now that's not the case in a lot of areas.
Right.
My problem is here, I think all this could have been avoided if our organization would have just came out and said, this is what we're doing. Instead of having this wishy-washy response
Mm-hmm.
and then saying, well, here you go. You make a decision and then we'll figure things out as we go. We still don't know if there's going to be any playoff games for football or volleyball, or anything. We don't know if there's going to be any state tournaments. We just don't know. They haven't said anything about it, which I think shows, I'm not going to say lack of leadership because I am actually not really upset with the leadership. I just think we could have done a lot better job of laying things out on how it was going to take place. Now, the one thing that's starting to pop up here, you have some schools down in southwestern Wisconsin that have said we are going in the fall or going in the spring. I'm sorry. So you have a group of youth coaches that are trying to form a club football team. The I keep saying it.
I know it's hard,
Our,
isn't
our state
it?
organization has said it is okay for kids to play on that club team and play against other high school teams, but they would not be eligible if there was a playoff series. I have a big issue with that because
Yeah,
you are opening up the door for recruiting.
right.
Because if I'm a coach of a school that says we're going to go play in the spring
Yep.
and this club team starts up, I'm not coaching right now. I'm going to go coach this club team.
Sure.
I'm going to get these kids from nearby that go to different schools, play for this
And get
club
the
team.
best ones.
And then I'm going to get them to transfer to my school to play in the spring and then the following fall.
Yeah.
I don't understand how they can sit there and say that this is a good idea. Now, I have a hard time seeing that this club team will actually get up off the ground because there's an equipment thing. And they're talking about renting equipment from a school. No school is going to rent out equipment to a club because even though they're renting it, that school is still liable if somebody gets hurt because of the condition of the equipment.
Right.
Um, helmets, shoulder pads, all those things. The school that owns those is liable. You can't pass off that liability. Even if you sign a thing saying, I'm not going to sue this school, guess what? A family can go sign a agreement to hold the school harmless if their son or daughter gets injured, but all of a sudden they go and have a serious neck injury, they're paralyzed, they can still turn around and sue that school. That piece of paper they signed holds no weight in court.
Yeah, it's really not going to, and that's a
So,
risk for the school. So
so
then
there's
yeah, so
no
then you make a great point. Where do they get the equipment from? And okay, if you need to get equipment, I'm sure you know where you can. However, it costs money.
right.
So
It, it, it costs about $700 to $1,000 to equip a football player
right,
properly. That's helmet, shoulder pads, uniform, all from head to toe. I don't see families paying $1,000
no,
when they're,
most won't.
and I agree. I'm not happy with the schools that decide to go in the spring because you're putting families and kids in a position where in the spring they're going to have to choose between two sports that
Yep.
they enjoy, and that's not fair. And that's why I think it should have been laid out at the state level that no, we're playing in the fall.
Right.
If you
Right.
don't want to
I
play in the
mean,
fall, cancel your season
yep.
to 2021.
And I
You
mean,
know,
you've got to be a little careful with how you approach this. I don't. So I'm going to call them out, and I'm just gonna say I think they did a terrible job, because what we need right now is direction, and we need guidance, and they didn't really provide either one of those. They just kind of said, well, figure it out on your own. But here's the CDC guidelines that everybody's following anyway, and here's what the governor said, and follow that. And we're not going to give you any advice, and we're not going to give you anything beyond this. So it really created this quandary and this conundrum for everybody, as you were talking about, where you've got some schools going in the fall and some schools going in the spring, and people trying to manipulate the system. It should have been a clear plan, and saying, here's what you should do as a school district for these sports in the fall. It should have been very clear, and they didn't do that. I'm going to call them out. I'm not beholden to them in any way, so I feel free to do that. Um, and I think there's a lot of people that feel that the state organization just did not hone in and do what they're meant to do. I mean, this is what they're meant to do. This is why they're there. Set the rules, set the boundaries, set the guidelines, and they didn't do that.
and I will tell you this.
Yep.
I did watch both of the meetings um, that were publicized, and the individuals that are in charge of making these decisions did not have the best intentions of the entire membership and state when they made their decisions. Um, People were very locally aligned and
Sure.
didn't look at everything as a whole. They even came out and said at one point that having a state championship tournament wasn't a big deal. It was just being able to play. And I call BS on that. You talk to any coach, you talk to any student, you talk to any family, you talk to any community, you talk to
Yep.
anybody. a chance to play in a state tournament is what they work for,
Right.
not just to get together and play. Especially when you look at some of these sports. So would you do the same thing in basketball again in the winter? Okay,
Yeah.
you, I don't think they really looked at the legal ramifications they could get themselves into if they were not going to do state tournaments for football, volleyball, and soccer, but we're going to do it for basketball for winter sports.
Right.
Really? Really?
Right.
You
If
just
it's
said it
not
wasn't
safe for
important. So let's
one,
just
then
cancel
it's
all
probably
three
not
tournaments.
safe for the other.
Right. And again, that's where I think my frustration was.
Yeah.
And the meetings were via Zoom, were on YouTube, but you could tell they were via Zoom. There was two people that were sitting there, heads down the whole time. You could tell they were doing other work. They're just like,
Yeah.
not even paying attention to arguments that people were making.
Yeah.
That's where the leadership and, like you said, the guidance portion, I
Yep.
just
Yep.
don't think. I think people went into these meetings, they had their mind made up. They weren't open minded about things.
Right. They had a certain
And
agenda or something. They went in. Yeah.
it should have been just very clear this is what we're doing
Right.
instead of laying up all these different options people could do. And there, and even after the final, the last meeting, there was still so many question marks and gray areas that we still don't have answers to be honest,
Yeah.
Lowell.
Yeah.
We're going into a practice being like, well, we're going to do it this way. We don't know if we're supposed to because nobody told us whether we should or we shouldn't.
I mean, you're kind of making your own decision based on all the factors that you have to take into consideration and do the best job that you can on your own. Kind of that's what it feels like. Like, you're just saying, okay, well, we know we're distancing and we're trying to follow guidelines and all of that, but I don't know, is this right, is it wrong? I guess we're just going to do what we can the best we can.
Well, right, and that's the whole frustrating part with
Yeah.
all of this,
Yeah.
um, because there wasn't a consistent guideline. Like one thing that is being determined is okay, during when an athlete is on the field to play, they don't have to have their mask on. We have these face shields like the NFL is going to be wearing. They come off, they take their helmet off, they have to put their mask on. Well, we asked, well, if they put their helmet on, or if they leave their helmet on with that face shield on, do they have to put their mask on? And they're like, yes. And we're like, that makes no
Okay.
sense. And then we're like, okay, so on offense, you run players in, a running back in to run plays in. Every play you're putting somebody else in. Can they just leave their helmet on and not put a mask on? They're like, no, they have to put their mask on as soon as they get to the sideline. We're like, so they're gonna run to the sideline, probably take their helmet off, get a drink of water, put their mask on, and then have to take it off and do right away and get the new play and run in. It makes no sense, and it's stuff like that the leadership kind of just said, that's not our issue. You guys figure it out.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
And so then that leaves you all making these different decisions across all these school districts. And what is the face of Wisconsin sports as a result of all of that?
right.
Across the state, it's completely different, and there's no consistency there. And I'm guessing, and I don't know because I haven't talked to anybody in other states, but I'm assuming that there are other states that are having these problems. I would think,
Oh,
either they're completely open or they're completely closed, or you kind of have this mishmash, which I feel like we have here, this kind of mishmash where you're saying, well, maybe you'll do it in the spring, maybe do it in the fall, and there's not a lot of direction on it. But I would assume that that's the case, and so you're probably looking at a lot of issues for high school sports all the way across the board, across the country.
Yeah, and I think what it is that people don't want to go on record making a decision and then something happens, like you have an outbreak or something. And
Mm-hmm.
you know me, Lone Wolf. I'm always one, make a decision and own it.
Yep.
Whether it's right or wrong, whether good things happen or bad things happen, make a decision. Make the best informed decision that you think is for the best. And then
Right.
if something happens, you can say, this is the information we had available to us. We made a decision. We were wrong. We're gonna correct it. And just own
Right.
up to it.
Yeah. And then yeah, and you can.
I,
It's
I
okay
I
to be
mean,
wrong.
we are
It is okay to be
so
wrong.
we're so afraid to be wrong with things and offend people these days. I'm sick of it. I'm just sick of it. Um, but yeah, so the good thing is we start next Monday on Labor Day. We start practice for football, soccer, and volleyball. At least for our school, I know I think if you have, I don't even know if lacrosse is going in the fall, or if you have other um, high risk sports, they call it, going on,
Mm-hmm.
then that all starts on Monday if you're going in the fall. So, we'll see. It's just kind of funny because we started school today, and I'm in teach strength, our strength training stuff. I have 30 kids in a class in the weight room. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
it's just they all have masks on and things like that, but it's hilarious. Socially distance. Well, I have like 30 kids and probably 20 by 20 box of a room. I can't socially distance. So it's just everything's kind of funny because you gotta laugh at it because it's just like, well, we're gonna you gotta just do the best you can with stuff with what's
And
going on.
that's just it. I mean, look, everything you're gonna do, there's some risk involved because the only risk, the only non-risk, I should say, is if I sit in my house or my apartment or wherever and I do not leave, and I'm a complete hermit and I do not
Right.
leave, then there's no risk involved. Okay, so that's okay. Well, then you're safe and you're fine. You're never gonna interact with anybody else at all. You're okay. But if you go out, there's some risk involved. I mean, if you can't socially distance, you do the best that you can in those situations. You're not on top of each other. You wear a mask, and yeah, you just have to you have to make an informed choice, and you know what you're getting
Right.
into. So yeah,
All right.
but I
Anything
think I
else
think that
on
covers things from a state organization level. No, I think we're good there. I think we covered that. Our feelings on
I
that.
mean, if
So
if we were just sitting somewhere having some drinks and you know so on and so forth, I could give some more opinions, but again, I have to
yeah,
be
not for our
somewhat
show here. Yeah,
politically correct on the show
right.
because of what my other job is. So, um, moving on to the NFL, which we are just over a week away um, from
It's
the
coming up.
beginning of the season, and
Yep.
a couple of things. And this must have just came up. We have a couple of interesting, you know, I guess developments with quarterback situations
Mm-hmm.
with a couple of teams. The Chicago Bears have announced that Mitch Trubisky is going to be their starting quarterback. So I
I
don't know
can't.
why I don't know why you bring in Nick Foles
I can't even
if
talk right now.
if you're just gonna go with back to Trubisky. I really don't know.
I'm sorry, Coach. I'm losing it on my end. I'm laughing so hard right now.
I'm kind of just imagining a train going off its railroad tracks because that
I
probably was gonna be a train wreck.
I
I have
don't
a
get it.
feeling.
Okay, so you bring Foles in and you say, let's have a quarterback competition. And Mitch Trubisky, I'm sorry, he just tanked it last year. He just wasn't very good. And now you say we have more confidence in Mitch Trubisky than we do in Nick Foles, who I'll give people this. He's more of a system quarterback, probably. I mean, he excelled in Philadelphia under Doug Peterson. He won a Super Bowl, great. But anywhere else he's played, he's been pretty bad. So I get where people might say, oh, well, maybe he wasn't that great. But why wouldn't you just give him a shot? You brought him in for a reason. Trubisky's just not doing it for you. And you guys
I
are and you
know,
guys are looking at it where you thought you had a chance to actually be competitive.
right? So that was interesting. The other quarterback development, and it's not a huge surprise. The Dolphins have cut Rosen because they could
Oh,
not find anybody to trade
okay.
with. Now, Rosen, I think he's a guy that really hasn't had a great opportunity. If he can get into the right organization and maybe sit for a season or two, he could be another one of those late blooming quarterbacks. Kind of like what happened with Alex Smith. He came out with the 49ers, he got banged around right and left, and then he went over to the Chiefs and blossomed. Um,
Right.
you know, I think that's the kind of thing that could happen with Rosen. I'll tell you right now, team that could take a flyer on him because you have really nothing to lose at quarterback right now would be the
Sure.
Patriots. I mean, you're relying on Cam Newton. Yeah,
Yeah.
he is because Cam Newton has been named captain with the Patriots. So
Yep.
I'm sorry, Patriot fans, you guys will not be making the playoffs.
No, you will not.
If they
Absolutely
make
not.
the playoffs, I will be shocked, to be honest. Um, I, I have no confidence in Cam Newton to lead guide a team. Um, Ever since they lost in the Super Bowl and he pouted at the press conference,
Yeah.
he's just gone down
Well, and he's
since.
not the same player. He's not the
You
same
know,
player. And I think a lot of it has to do with, part of it's attitude, but part of it is the dude has been hit so much in his career. Eventually, it does take a toll on your body. And he has never been the most accurate quarterback. So now you're older, more beat up, and not as accurate. And is he better than Stidham? Well, yeah, but that's not really saying a whole lot. So uh, they're just not good enough to make the postseason. They're not.
right. Other than that, we have Leonard Fournette being released from the Jaguars.
As part of the
Um,
Jaguars' apparent house cleaning.
Holy cow! Yeah, they are cleaning house there. I think they're pretty much saying we're not going to be very good. Let's start over. Clear cap space and start over. Which, if you think about Lone Wolf, does it really matter this year?
No, not at all.
You don't have to worry about your ticket sales being low.
They always are.
They are. You actually might get more people to come to games this year. To
You
to be
might. I don't
honest,
know.
you might
Yeah.
actually increase ticket sales because you're only gonna have so many fans in your games.
Right.
So I think if you're looking at it, this is actually a smart move by them because not many people are going to pay attention to them anyways because of everything else going on. So you know
Right.
what? Let's just think, go into the off season.
I mean,
Um,
really, yeah, and that's kind of what we were saying anyway for the Jags. They just need to look at a fresh perspective. They're probably going to fire their coach after this season because he's not winning the Super Bowl. I'm sorry, it's not happening. And they're not going to make the playoffs. So you're probably going to get rid of him, bring in a new coach. So you get rid of some players that were there. You brought in some young talent, and you'll start over. You know.
right, and
So I was actually seeing.
they
This is an interesting thing, and I want to get your opinion on this, Coach. Yannick Ngakwe goes
mhm.
from the Jags to the Vikings, who their defense was depleted, and now you bring in a decent player on your line. Do you think that gives any relevance to the Vikings by bringing in a guy like that, or just they're still kind of on the edge of being in the playoffs?
I mean, I think it helps them become a playoff team. I still think that secondary is so inexperienced
Yeah,
that um, it's going to be hard for them to defend against elite offenses. Um, what they're banking on is that they can generate a great, this unbelievable pass rush to cover up a weak secondary. That's why they made
yeah,
this. That is exactly what you do. If you don't have the guys to cover in the secondary, you try to pressure the quarterback so he has to make quick decisions. Um, I don't know if this one move is going to be able to do that for them. I do think that the Delvin Cook contract situation is going to come up throughout the season. I know, he took a Nangaku, or however you pronounce his name, took a
yeah.
pay cut to go
He
to the
did. Yep,
Vikings.
yep,
One of their offensive linemen restructured a deal to save some money.
yep.
So what the Vikings are doing, they're going to all these guys and saying, "Hey, we're trying to find money to sign Delvin." But eventually, guys are gonna be like, "No."
Right, right. I mean, eventually, yeah, guys are going to be like, hey, you know what? Either them or their agent, whoever it happens to be, Drew Rosenhaus or whoever, some guy who just wants all the money. They're going to be like, nope, we're not doing that. We're not giving you a buddy discount or a team discount or whatever.
Right. And I think what it was is that the people they restructured are going into that final year of their deal. So it was either restructure or get released type of thing. So they restructured. Um, that happens more often than you think in the NFL. A lot of guys end up taking pay cuts that are towards the end of contracts just to be on a roster so they get that paycheck. Um, and I think a lot of players that don't have their head in the clouds understand when they sign a 5-year, $50 million contract. I'm probably going to have to give up 5 to 10 of that towards the end of the contract if I
Right.
want to keep playing, because you know it just if I want to be on a contender, I'm not going to be able to keep all that money. I think they know that, and that's why you get these players that hold out for those higher contracts, because they know they're going to have to restructure or take a pay cut at some point throughout the lifetime of that contract. So, um,
Right. So
I think
and this isn't a huge headline, but I think it's something worth noting. Adrian Peterson got cut by Washington. Do you think we've seen the last of Adrian Peterson? Do you think this is the end for the great Adrian Peterson as a relevant football player?
Maybe as relevant. I think he will end up with a team. May not happen until about week 4 or 5 when injuries start happening. you'll probably have a team that's kind of thin at running back. They'll have an injury or here or there, and they'll bring him in. I'll tell you what, if you put Adrian Peterson behind a good offensive line, he still can be a productive back for you. He's not going to dominate like he did when he was in his prime, but he's still going to be solid. I'd take him over a lot of other running backs in the league if I just need a guy to get me a couple yards here and there and catch a few balls.
Yeah.
So I think he'll catch on with the team. I think, but he's going to have to be patient and wait for somebody to have an injury because I think most backfields are probably set at this point in time.
I would say that's probably true. Yeah.
How about this news? He just won't go away.
I know where you're going with this, but yeah, okay.
Josh Gordon back with the Seattle Seahawks.
And look, I mean, until you can prove it, I will not believe it. You've been in and out of the league so many times, Josh. Until you prove it, I don't buy it. He may come in, and you know what's going to happen, Coach? You know what's going to happen? He's going to have like a great game, and then everybody's going to be like, "Oh my gosh, I need him on my fantasy team." Oh, they're going to freak out. And then, next week he won't do anything, and then the week after he'll be like, Josh Gordon has been suspended again by the league because of drug policy. Blah blah blah.
Or he'll walk. No, he'll walk away from the team for some reason.
Sure. Yeah.
And that's the thing. And we laugh, but it is
It's a very
sad
serious
story.
thing. Yeah.
Because he had such great talent. And I think what's happening is people are having the Josh Gordon hangover.
Yeah, they are.
Because we haven't seen him play a full season, we still remember that awesome season he had in Cleveland.
Right. And they're thinking, oh, he could recreate that.
He can still do that. Guess what? He's got. Let's find out how. I think he's 29.
Oh, I'd have to look, but yeah.
I'm trying to pull up right now. I think he's 29, and I'm sorry, he is not as explosive as he once was. He has off the field issues. How can you trust him to be part of your football team? I just don't understand it. But now on this point, Lone Wolf, would you take Josh Gordon or Antonio Brown right now?
Ooh. Really put me on the spot. Okay. I would probably I'd probably take Josh Gordon only because he hasn't really been known to cause a lot of problems in the locker room. I mean, yeah, he's had his own issues, but he hasn't been a supremely disruptive teammate, whereas Antonio Brown is notorious now for being extremely disruptive for the whole football team in the locker room. So, I mean, Antonio Brown is probably a better. Well, I mean, we've seen Antonio Brown be a better receiver, but I'd probably take Gordon over Brown.
Yeah, I don't know, to be honest. I think it's like flipping a coin. I think you're gonna have off the field stuff you're gonna have to deal with both players, and I just don't know if there's a benefit to having either one on your roster, to be honest. Now, what about
I wouldn't take either one, but if you forced me to choose like you did, then that's what I would do if I had to choose.
What about this? What if all of a sudden, because rumors have been Seattle has been interested in Antonio Brown. What if they sign him too?
Oh man, that's like a dumpster fire waiting to happen. You
But
know,
that could. But here's the thing: if all of a sudden they keep their nose clean, they stay on the field, that could be an explosive offense.
True. I know. Don't get me wrong. I
You
mean, it'd be
know,
an amazing offense. Especially with Russell Wilson at the helm guiding that, it would be an
right?
incredible offense. And they've got good receivers outside of that with Tyler Lockett. And they have guys um, who and DK Metcalf. They have got guys that can really really ball. So you put four receivers out there that are amazing. Yeah, they could be great, but I just don't see either Gordon or Brown being able to last an entire season without some type of drama that keeps them off the football field.
Right.
Really.
And I agree with that. I agree with that. So let's quick go through the just the divisions here at the for the end of the show and kind of just give our analysis on what with all the off-season stuff and the training camp stories that have come up and we'll see if we've changed our minds on some of these divisions. You know, we really shouldn't. There shouldn't be too many minds changed, but yeah, I think there's a couple things that could change here. So we'll start in the AFC East. We'll go all AFC, all NFC, and and just kind of go who we think's gonna win the division. And then we'll
Okay.
go into the playoff teams, things like that. So
Starting in
AFC
the
East,
AFC? Okay, AFC
yeah,
East. Okay.
AFC East. I, I hope we both agree that the New York Jets are still going to be the seller team of that division.
My opinion on Adam Gase and the cellar dweller Jets has not changed. So
And
no,
to be honest, Adam Gase is the big reason that I put the
it
Jets.
it really is. Yeah, yeah.
I just
And their
don't.
team overall, their team isn't great, but yeah, I agree. Yep.
Next, for me, I have gone back and forth here, Lone Wolf. I
Yeah.
had the Dolphins there when we did our end of the year free agency preview. But with all of the COVID opt outs and everything, God, and I'm gonna go on the limb. I'm gonna go on the limb. I'm probably gonna offend some people. I'm gonna put the New England Patriots at number 3. I think the Dolphins are gonna be better than the Patriots this year. I even with the inexperience that the Dolphins have at quarterback, I think the Dolphins defense gets them above the Patriots in that division. And then the Bills win the division.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I well, my feelings. I like Brian Flores. He's my guy. I like the direction that the Dolphins are trending in, and the Patriots are trending in the opposite direction. So, yes, I'm sure there are people in Massachusetts or that area of the country. If they're listening to this show, they're like, "You guys are on crack." Cam Newton are going to lead us to the promised land, whatever. But no, it's not going to happen. And you will be third in that division just because the Jets are so bad. There's no way you could be last. And yeah, the Bills, it's their division to win, and they're going to. So they're the best team in that division now.
All right. AFC North. I think we can agree that the Bungles are going to be dead last.
Yes, totally agree.
Where do you have the rest of that division shaking out? Because it gets interesting after that you take the Bengals out,
Yeah, yeah.
and
It's
even though Baltimore did what they did last year,
right.
I'm not the stuff I've been reading.
Yeah.
I'm not so optimistic that they can replicate last year.
Well, and you get rid of a guy who we still don't know all the reasons why he's gone. But that's a defensive hole that you have to fill. And yeah, they have other guys, but they're not, they're not of that caliber. So what do you do in that case? I don't know. I still feel like, and I think this is what it's going to end up playing out. I think the Ravens will probably still finish first, followed by the Steelers and then the Browns, because I don't have any confidence in Baker Mayfield. This is the year for him to prove it. The Browns have put what they can around him. They've drafted an offensive lineman really early in the draft. They really wanted to do everything they could to give him the best chance. But that's kind of how I feel like. And I'll tell you this, Coach. If the Steelers won the division and the Ravens came in second, I wouldn't be overly surprised, because Big Ben is back, and I think they could be a lot better. And their defense is really good. But I still feel like the Ravens may edge them in the end, and it'd be 1, 2, 3, 4. I think that was the same order as last year for this division.
So yeah, I agree with the Browns. I think they they're going to finish third. I don't think Mayfield is going to prove it.
Right.
If they continue to flounder because they continue to bring in new offensive coordinators for their head coach instead of just bringing in a stable guy and building a system. That they're looking for the flash in the pants type guy. I am going to disagree with the winner of the division. I believe the Steelers are going to win that division. The Ravens are not set at running back. Mark Ingram has not been what he was a couple years ago. I know they have a couple of young guys they're high on, but I think
Right.
what will happen is I think defensive coordinators in that playoff game against the Titans are going to duplicate what the Titans did to Lamar Jackson and cause him fits, and force him to throw the ball and beat them. Yeah, and I like Lamar Jackson. I think he's going to have a really great career. He's not at the point where he can sit in the pocket or roll out and pass for 300 yards consistently and win games. He needs to be able to use his legs. And I think the Titans laid out a blueprint on how to stop, or at least slow him down. And I think that's all those top tier teams need. Like you said, the Steelers defense, I think, is going to be really good this year.
Yeah, they are. Yeah.
And with Big Ben back, and really, I think you never want to say an injury is a good thing, but I think having just a year off for Big Ben is going to be beneficial for him. So I think this, and I like Mike Tomlin. I love Mike Tomlin as a coach. I give him an edge over Harbaugh, because I think Tomlin knows how to motivate guys to play for each other. So I like the Steelers in the North.
Okay. Okay. And I can see that happening, but yeah, that's good. Okay. And on to the West or the
AFC
South?
South. This division could be one of the most interesting divisions in the league. Again, take out the Jaguars.
Yeah,
I mean,
they're last, and they're not doing themselves any favors in becoming any
you
more than
cut your
they
best
know they're
offensive
last.
player, you traded your best defensive player, then they just traded somebody else too.
Yeah,
They're,
this
they're,
could
they're
be the worst team in the league this year,
uh,
potentially.
absolutely.
Yeah,
It's going to be a toss up between them, the Bengals, and Washington.
yeah, yeah.
I don't even think it's close. I really don't. I don't think it's close after that.
Right,
Because I even think the Jets are that much better than those three
right. They're
teams.
I mean, they have more talent. They one thing the Jags do not have, and love him or don't love him, it doesn't matter. Sam Darnold is better quarterback than Gardner Minshew the third. I'm
Right.
sorry, I know there's Minshew mania, whatever, but there's more consistency at quarterback in New York than there is anywhere else when Darnold is healthy. Had mono last year. When he's
Right.
healthy, they're just better at quarterback. So,
So that takes us to the third place team.
whew,
And
well,
I
yeah.
really think one or two, this division is going to be determined based off of injuries that teams have. But unfortunately, I think this team didn't do itself any favors with some offseason moves. I think they actually hurt their offense. They didn't help it. And I think the Houston Texans are going to be in the drop all the way down to third place in that division. Followed then by the Colts. I like the Colts. I think they have a really nice, young, talented roster besides quarterback. But Philip Rivers, at least for a year, is going to put them in that playoff hunt position. But I like the Titans. I like Vrabel. I think he is perfect for that organization, that hard nose. We're going to run the ball, play solid defense. I mean, that's what Jeff Fisher basically did when he took the Titans to the Super Bowl. That's kind of their identity
Hmm.
for that organization. I really like what they're doing there. Um, so I think the Titans will win the division, followed by the Colts, the Texans, and the Jags.
Yeah. So I mean, the third and fourth team to me, I don't think there's any question. Obviously, the Jags are last. I totally agree with you on the Texans. Uh, they didn't do themselves any favors in the offseason, and they didn't improve themselves from the standpoint of an offense. Really defensively, offensively. I mean, their draft, we talked about that before, but I think they're trending in the wrong direction, and they're not going to be that good, despite the fact they have talent at quarterback. But that can't win every football game. So I don't see them being better than third, and they're going to be outside of the playoffs looking in. I'm really high on the Colts, and this is a hard one, man, because I think the Titans are a team. Last year they were not the winner of the division, yet they performed the best in the postseason, and Vrabel got the most out of that team. So I think I'm going to go with. I'm going to disagree. I'm going to go with the Colts first and the Titans second. I still think the Titans are in the postseason, and who knows, they may perform better. But I think this is a hurrah for the Colts. Things gel. People had said, "Oh, well, Philip Rivers, maybe this isn't going to be great." A lot of interceptions last year. I think the combination of the coaching staff with Rivers, he's probably going to have one of the best years of his career, and the Colts will have an exceptional year, and they'll finish first. That doesn't mean whatever happens in the playoffs happens in the playoffs, but I think it's Colts, Titans, Texans, Jags.
Yeah, and it wouldn't surprise me if the Colts won the division. I think it's going to come down to which team can stay healthy.
Yeah.
I think the Titans are a little bit deeper if they can sustain a few more bumps and bruises along the way than the Colts are. I just think the Colts are just a little too inexperienced in their backup roles to be able to you know withstand too many injuries. But if they stay healthy and Rivers plays to the potentially can play, they're going to be a tough team to beat. So moving to the AFC West, and this is a tricky division. I mean, it to me, there's two good teams and there's two not so good teams. Um,
Right.
and I'm probably gonna upset some Denver Bronco fans here, but I'm not a big fan of their quarterback situation. I know they got Melvin Gordon. I don't think he's going to be able to do the same thing he did in Los Angeles. I think it's kind of a system thing. I am going with the Denver Broncos last because of their quarterback. The Chargers in third because they have Tyrod Taylor, who I think can win a couple games early before Herbert takes over. The Raiders second and the Chiefs first. And Lone Wolf, if you say the Chiefs aren't going to win that division, I might jump through my computer and beat you, Seth.
Even if I said that your Raiders are going to win the division, you wouldn't agree with me.
Not happening. It's not happening.
No,
Not
I agree with you. I mean, I don't think there's any question about the top two teams in this division. I think it's pretty clear. The Chiefs are number one, hands down. The Raiders, to me, the Raiders are second. I know that there may be some debate amongst a variety of fans and how teams will perform, the Chargers, the Broncos, but to me, the Raiders are better. Their plans are working, and they're going to be the second team in this division. I struggle a little bit with the third and fourth teams. I think talent wise, at quarterback, it's kind of a toss up for me. You're right. I mean, Taylor might sneak in there and he might win a few, but you're basically playing with, and what'll end up happening for both of these teams, guys who are in their first or second year, really early on in their career. Uh, I don't know. I think the Chargers, personally, to me, are probably going to be last and the Broncos third. But I don't think the margin is going to be that different between these two teams. I don't think either one of them is going to be very good. You have some talented players that they both drafted. They certainly put a lot of receivers on the Broncos, and they gave the opportunity there uh, for the quarterback to succeed because of the talent they put around him. But it's on him, and I don't know if he can do that. So that would be my say. I don't know. Third and fourth, though, really, what you're looking at is what, 4-12 and 5-11. I mean, neither
right,
team is
right.
very, very good. So
It's not very. It's not going to be a big difference there at the bottom of that
no,
division. We'll stay away from playoff predictions because I mean it's way too early to go there. I know some people say, "Oh, come on," unless you really want to, Lone Wolf. I would say we just go to the NFC. But if you want to give a playoff
no,
prediction,
we'll go to the NFC. We don't. Yeah, we won't have to get into that. I mean, I think we kind of gave that anyway by saying who's going to finish in each division, sort of. But yeah, let's just go to the NFC.
yeah, I mean, I really think unlike some previous years here that you're not going to, at least in the AFC, you're not going to see three teams from a division make the playoffs this year. I
Right? I
think
don't think so.
I think it's a very distinct line. I think you're going to see the top two teams in the AFC divisions make the playoffs, and I mean, let's be honest. Let's be honest. The Chiefs are the favorite to go to the Super Bowl out of the AFC.
Well,
We
they
don't
have to
even,
be,
we,
right?
we,
I mean,
we,
they have
we
to be
don't
the
even
one.
have to go through who's the seeding because the Chiefs didn't lose much in the offseason. Yeah, they had some COVID opt-outs, but you still got the best offensive player in the league in Patrick Mahomes on your roster. So unless something happens there, they are the favorite to go back to the Super Bowl. Will it happen? They still got to get there, but they you have to put them as the favorite. So there we go. We just took care of the AFC playoffs because it
There you
really
go.
well as long as the Chiefs are there, they're the favorites.
Easy, right? Yeah.
So now the NFC could be much different because
That's wide open. Yeah.
I think the NFC is kind of wide open. We're gonna start at the West. I want to go to the West, the South, and then our favorite division, the East.
Right.
And then we'll end with the North since that's our division.
Home division. Yeah. Yep.
So in the NFC West, I mean, it's not going to be a real fun division to watch, to be honest. Um, I think the Rams are going to be bad.
Yep.
Um,
Last place, hands down.
dead last place. I think the Cardinals, they're going to be better, but they're
Yep.
not going to be able to catch the Seahawks or the 49ers this year.
Right.
So they'll be third. As of right now, I'm going to put the 49ers second, the Seahawks first because of all the injuries the 49ers are having.
Yeah.
They have been riddled with injuries, especially in the receiving core. I mean, they signed two receivers, and then the next day they both got hurt.
Right.
Um, and then on top of it, Kinlaw, who they drafted, people are saying is not doing well. He's not ready for the NFL. So that hurts them on the depth on the defense. So I think there's some issues in that roster for the 49ers. So I am going to put the Seahawks above them because I know I just bashed the Seahawks for signing Josh Gordon, and I'm not going to take that back.
Right.
But the Seahawks are right there with the 49ers last year. And if the 49ers offense gets worse, the Seahawks will be better than them.
Yeah. And in this case, coach, I agree with you 100%. So on this entire order, um, to me, the Seahawks last year, and this is a team, the 49ers, that were in the Super Bowl, and the Seahawks last year were a couple plays away from winning the division over the 49ers. I mean, it could have played out either way. To me, the biggest factor is the consistency that you would have at the quarterback position, and you have Russell Wilson with the Seahawks, and anything they do to make themselves better just plays into their favor. The 49ers still have a really good defense, but it could turn out to be a situation where their offense just doesn't keep pace. And you can have a great defense, but unless it's, the 85 Bears or something, and I don't think the 49ers are the 85 Bears on defense, um, you're not going to win the Super Bowl. Now, I mean, I'm not saying they're not going to be good. They're still going to be a good team, but I agree. I think the Seahawks are number one in that division, the 49ers two, Cardinals three, Rams four.
All righty. I'll let you start with the NFC South here, Lone Wolf.
Yeah, and this is going to be one of the most interesting and fun divisions. Everybody wants to see how
Mhm.
Brady's going to perform, how this Buccaneers team goes. It's Bruce Arians and a high flying offense. But to me, this is the Saints' division to lose. So they're still on top to me. The Buccaneers are second, the Falcons are third, and the Panthers are fourth. The Panthers, they brought in Teddy Bridgewater, but it's a new coach, new system, really young defense. They're definitely going to be last in this division. I don't think there's any expectation they'd be anything more than that. I think it's unfortunate, but the Falcons continue to underperform, even though they have some talent on the offensive side of the football. They drafted, to fill some needs on defense, but they're still going to underperform. And this might be, Quinn's last year there, and it just feels like they have that hangover. They should have won that Super Bowl, didn't, and here we are with them underperforming, even though they have some talent on their roster.
Yeah, and I agree with that with those rankings. Yeah, the Panthers they're not going to be a horrible team because they do
No,
have McCaffrey on offense. Um, and to be honest, I think Bridgewater is an upgrade at quarterback. So I think their offense is going to be okay. But yeah, their defense is so young and inexperienced that it's going to be tough for them to, unless they can outscore teams, it's going to be tough for them.
right.
And you get to to, the Saints, like you said, this is supposedly Breeze's last hurrah. Um, the only issue there is, Kamara not there right now. They're possibly looking to trade him. If they trade him,
Yeah. I think
that
that opens the door. It really
that
does.
changes things. But
Mhm.
I'm going to go with the assumption that they're going to figure that out. And he'll be a Saint at least this season. The Buccaneers are interesting because I read an article where Bruce Arians gave the business to the Buccaneers offense because their practices have looked sloppy and sluggish on offense. So that's not promising. I mean, you have to give Tom Brady a tongue lashing because of how the offense is looking.
Yeah.
That's not encouraging. So yeah, but I do think they're good. They're the second best team in that division. They'll more than likely be in the playoffs. And like you said with the Falcons, it's unfortunate for them that they have been stuck in a division with Drew Brees.
Yeah.
I, I mean, really, that's what it comes down to. You had a couple years, the Panthers just were really, really good
Right.
because of Cam Newton, and then you had Drew Brees, and even if they were good, they weren't good enough. So it's just they're kind of in the worst case scenario in that division right now. Now, if they can withstand this year and still be at least in the playoff hunt, be like that 9-7, and even if they don't qualify, because I think you could be 9-7 in that division and be third. I really do, and that's where I think the NFC is different than the AFC. I think three teams could make the playoffs in the NFC South. Because I don't think, I think the North might get one. Well, they'll get one for sure. I don't know if they'll get a wild card. Same with the NFC East. I don't know if they'll get a wild card. So I think the NFC South could get three teams in the playoffs. Um, but yeah,
That's entirely possible. Yeah.
but if they don't, yeah, I think Quinn, this is his year. He has to at least be right there in that playoff hunt.
Yeah.
So if he's not, he will be he'll be replaced next year. So all right, moving
On to
to
the East.
the probably the most laughable division in football right now, the NFC East.
Yep.
It was a toss up for me because I really dislike the Giants. I really do. I'm not a fan of their roster, their coach, anything. But I'm almost the only thing that I really like about Washington is their coach.
Right.
Um, yeah, when I look at it at their rosters, I think the Giants have better talent. I mean, they have Barkley, Jones can at least be a viable quarterback. They did try to improve their defense. So when I look at those are the bottom two teams. I'm going to go Washington in fourth, the Giants in third. It could easily be flip flopped,
Sure.
but I really give the Giants the edge because they have Barkley. I mean, Barkley's a game changer, and he's going to at least keep them in games, just because he's a threat to score every time he touches the ball. When you look at the top of that division, and you have to be objective. I hate the Cowboys. I don't like Jerry Jones. I continue to say he's the reason the Cowboys have not won a Super Bowl since the Aikman days. Don't like Mike McCarthy because I think he's a buffoon. But they do have a talented offense. I'll give them that. I think they're going to try to sign Earl Thomas because they released HaHa Clinton Dix. But I don't think I can go against the Eagles there. I think the Eagles defense, it's not getting as much notoriety by media outlets right now. And I mean, everybody's kissing Dallas's rear end right now. I mean, there's people saying that they're the favorites to win the Super Bowl this year. I'm like, I don't see that. I'm gonna go Eagles 1, Cowboys 2, and that is, and I think something's gonna happen in Dallas where there's gonna be an implosion because McCarthy doesn't really handle conflict well. I think eventually that's going to turn into a cluster down there. So I just don't think the Cowboys will be able to get out of their way.
And I agree with you on the top because this is the same thing every year for the Cowboys. Granted, they have a new coach, but they always have talent. Those Jason Garrett led teams, a lot of them were very talented. But they finished 8-8 because, again, like you said, they couldn't get out of their own way. They were fractional, they're divided, they had issues, and Mike McCarthy is, Jason Garrett was not the guy to deal with that. Mike McCarthy isn't either. I mean, he had the benefit of being in Green Bay, where you really didn't have a lot of that, and you didn't have an owner who was a meddlesome owner who's always making issues and problems and always doing stuff. Now he's got an owner who's one of the most active in football, getting in the way all the time. So I agree. I think it's one of those. Cowboys are probably more talented than the Eagles, but the Eagles are steady. Doug Peterson is steady. They believe in him, and that's the difference to me. Winning maybe one football game more than the Cowboys. On the bottom half, I don't know. I debated this too. I mean, I was in the same boat as you. I'm like, okay, I like Ron Rivera way, way more than the coach for the Giants, but the Giants are a little bit more talented. I'm just gonna go out on a limb because I don't think it'll matter in the end, and I'm gonna say Washington's gonna finish third because Judge is just gonna be out coached by Ron Rivera at some point, and he'll bungle a game that Ron Rivera wouldn't. And Washington finishes third as opposed to the Giants. I don't think it'll matter, but I'm going to say it just because. So.
And I don't argue with you with any of those points.
Yeah.
I think New York and Washington are two of the worst teams in the league right now. So, all right, that takes
the North
to the NFC North. Now, the news today definitely changes my thinking of this division, believe it or not.
Okay.
I mean, I'm going to start at the top and work down because I think it's easier to do that way. I think the Packers are still the most talented team in the division. I think they got better on defense. They got more experience on defense. They got healthier at wide receiver, even though they didn't add the quote unquote stud that everybody wanted them to. It's another year in the system. I think if you watch a lot of the social media stuff that's put out from Packers practice, Rodgers has a little bit different temperament than he has in the last couple of years. He's doing more of like what Favre did when the Packers were really good, joking around, playing around, just with everybody.
Yeah.
And this whole thing of Rodgers is going to want out, blah blah blah. I don't think so. I think the Packers drafting Jordan Love reignited a fire in him.
Hmm.
Um, and yeah, in 2 years he may not be a Green Bay Packer,
Right.
but I think he wants to win one more in Green Bay deep down because he wants to be thought of as better than Brett Favre.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, because right now it's we don't care Aaron Rodgers, Brett Favre. Guess what? Bart Starr still won more Super Bowls.
Right. 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 I mean, yeah. Rest in peace.
Right.
He's our guy. I mean, Bart Starr. Yeah.
He's
Yeah.
still the guy. Bart Starr
Yeah.
is still the guy. So I think deep down, Rodgers wants the best Brett Favre. He's not going to come out and say it, for
No.
for um, you know,
The
for
PR purpose, and he still
PR.
gets along with Favre
Right.
now.
They're going to get
Yeah.
along, but I
Yeah.
think deep down, he wants to win another one in Green Bay, and Favre's hoping he doesn't.
Yeah. Right.
So that's just that ego and egoness when
Yeah.
you're a pro athlete. I think the Vikings will finish second.
Yep.
I think they have enough talent on offense and their defensive front to finish second. Here's where I flip flopped because
Okay.
I think Chicago has a decent defense. And if they even had a mediocre offense, they could be, that between that 6 and 8 win range. But if you're telling me you're going to still rely on Mitch Trubisky to lead your team when you basically gave up on him last year, I don't have much faith in your offense. And I'm going out on a limb here, Lone Wolf. I'm gonna pick the Lions to finish third because of Matt Stafford and the Bears to finish dead last in that division.
Wow. Yeah. That
Going
is a cool
on
bet. I
that
think it's. I mean, the top two teams to me are a no-brainer. Um, obviously there's probably some Viking fans out there that wouldn't agree with that, but I think even though we're Packers fans, objectively, I think the Packers are the best team in that division. Third and fourth. Whew. Yeah. I don't know.
I
I don't know if I can agree with you because the reason is Matt Patricia is still there. The locker room doesn't have any confidence in him as a coach, and they're just not good all the way around. But I will say this, okay? If Stafford stays healthy, they have a running back now who could be dynamic, and if he is dynamic as he's supposed to be, uh, and Stafford stays healthy because the offensive line actually performs well enough to keep him upright, it is possible that they could finish third. I mean, I'll give you that. I just don't know. I'm not quite convinced. I don't know if they have enough talent on their roster. And from a coaching standpoint, do you believe in Matt Nagy or Matt Patricia more? I mean, really, to me, there's not a high vote of confidence either way.
well,
Um,
I look at it this way: if I'm sitting there and I'm a player on the Bears roster and I'm on that defense,
yeah,
and I've been practicing against these guys at quarterback for a couple of years. I know what Trubisky does, and I've watched him fail numerous times. And you bring in a new guy that's won a Super Bowl, by the way, but now
yeah,
we're not gonna try him out. My confidence in my coaches went out the window to make a good decision.
yeah.
I'm sorry. If I'm a player and I see Nick Foles come in, and I know he's been up and down his whole career, but the matter of fact is he still won a Super Bowl. We've struggled at the quarterback position. Give the guy a shot.
Right.
What do we have to lose? What do we have to lose by giving Nick Foles a shot? But no, we go with the other guy that I believe they didn't even pick up the fifth-year option on his
They
rookie.
did not. They did not.
So
That's
you're
absolutely true. They did
you
not.
don't have enough confidence to pick up his fifth-year option, but you're going to start him over the former Super Bowl MVP.
Right.
That's where I all of a sudden my faith in that coach making good decisions went out the window. And I know Matt Patricia isn't very good either.
Right.
But I think Stafford and really here I think
he's the
Stafford
factor. Yeah. Yeah.
is the factor here. He can will that team to victories.
Sure.
Because you got to
Well,
remember,
he's a better quarterback. I mean, he's a great quarterback on a bad franchise.
right? And if he can have a really solid year and the Lions win 4 or 5 games, he can go to his agent and be like, "Get me out of here! Finally, get me out of here because I need to
Yeah,
go."
please.
But he's
Yeah.
got to prove he can stay healthy and still play. The problem is the Lions are inept to put together an offensive line to keep him upright. I mean, I
They
look
really
at
do. Yeah.
I look at a half a dozen teams around the league that would love to trade for Stafford. New England, Cleveland, Jacksonville,
Yeah.
the
There's a lot of
Raiders,
teams that need a quarterback. Yeah. Yeah. The Vegas Raiders. Yeah.
probably the Redskins. I'm going to say it, the Redskins. I said Redskins. I'm tired of it. Until they come up with a new name, that's probably what I'm going to call them. So I think there's a lot of teams out there that would love to have him as their quarterback. Craig, the Bears would even trade for him probably. So
Yeah. Do you want to go down that road? I mean,
they would.
you named Trubisky the starter over a guy you brought in to probably be the starter, and then you trade for somebody else.
But then they'd probably
It's
trade
kind
for
of funny though.
they'd probably trade for him, then still start Trubisky over him.
I, he's better.
So, so
Admit your mistake and move on.
right. It
Admit your
made your
mistake.
mistake. Move on. Trubisky was a bad mistake. You took Trubisky. You traded up to get Trubisky over Pat Mahomes.
And Deshaun Watson. Let's not forget him.
How he is still the GM of the Bears, I have no idea. But he is. So, so that is the rundown of what we think of the divisions right now.
Yeah.
Couple quick things. Rockets beat the Lakers by 17.
Okay.
Oh, 15.
Quite a bit. Wow.
By 15. Yeah. And the Golden Knights, they won 3-0, but it was a 1-0 game. Vancouver pulled their goalie. They scored 2 open net goals at the end of the game to win that series. So that's rundown of that.
Your Golden Knights prevail.
We are over time, but I do want to get your thoughts on this. And it's going to be interesting to see how this all works out. The NFL has announced that they're going to be putting social justice phrases in their end zones. And I kind of got a glimpse that if you play Madden Mobile, it's in the game. Lone Wolf, it's in the game. I almost deleted the app. I'm like, are you serious? I want to play a video game. I don't want to be reminded of this stuff. It's in the video game. So they're doing that, but then they're also having players put either phrases or names of victims on their helmets.
Yeah.
Which is fine. They want to do it. That's fine. I think that's an imprudent decision because I think it's going to turn fans off.
Mm-hmm.
But here is gonna be the thing that I think is gonna be very interesting to watch, because if the NFL makes a wrong decision, they're gonna lose a ton of support from not just fans but some organizations.
Right.
Tyler Eifert of the Jacksonville Jaguars has said he is putting the name of slain retired police chief David Dorn on his helmet.
Yep.
Now, there has been no position taken by the NFL on that.
Right. Not that I've heard or seen. Yep.
So, my question for you is, do you think the NFL would go to the point that if a group said that's offensive to us to have Tyler Eifert have that name on his helmet, that they would tell him he can't have that on his helmet? Do you think they would go there?
Oh, I
I
don't
know.
know if they
This is
would.
this yeah, this is like holding a match next to a
Yeah.
mound of hay.
Yeah. I wonder if they will though. I really wonder if that'll happen. I almost think they would. I hate to say it, but I almost think they would, because they'd feel like this isn't the message that the league wants to send. Well, what is the message that the league wants to send? I mean, and we talked about this before when we were looking at this story, right? What right does the NFL have to say you can do this, you can do that? Well, I mean, yes, technically they're the employer, so they'll tell you what to put on your helmet, and they'll tell you what not to put on your helmet or your uniform or whatever. But if a player is making a statement, as a lot of them want to do, then it's kind of like the kneeling thing, right? So the players will kneel. If the NFL said you can't do that because it's a rule in the NFL, you can't do that. Well, that obviously didn't really work out for them, if they wanted to take that stance. So now, if you're putting stuff on the helmet, right now you're telling them to do this. What if they don't believe in it? Then what do you do? I
Right.
mean,
Are you
yeah,
gonna
you
force a
force them to do it.
player?
Are you going to take that stance and you're going to say no, no way? I don't know. I would
Right.
like to think the NFL wouldn't do that, but I don't have complete confidence that they will abide by that. And I think you could end up with a firestorm.
And here's my opinion. I think the NFL will tell him he can't do it because they are on record of not supporting law enforcement, because back when the Dallas Police Department had those officers killed, Jason Witten wanted to put decals on the helmets, and the NFL said no.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
That's true.
Now,
Yep. You're right. You're right.
so if they do that, they are gonna go down a road that I don't know if they can come back from, because their stadiums may stay empty, to be honest. You're going to upset a lot of people. I think the diehard fans they'll be upset with some of the things they're doing, but they'll get over it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you'll lose a lot of fans.
Yeah. Again, it's no different than we were just talking about with the NBA. You as an organization, you want casual fans, because you're going to have your diehard fans, but you want the casual fans to really bolster your numbers. You want people riding bandwagons. You want people coming in. If you turn those people off, then and you only have the diehards, that hurts. It hurts big time. Um,
Mm-hmm.
at some point, right? People will say, we'll complain about it, but we're still going to watch. We're still going to do fantasy football. We're still going to do all these things and won't matter. But at some point, people are going to say, enough is enough, and I don't want to deal with this when I'm watching football or listening to a football game or something, and they'll stop doing it.
Mm-hmm.
There does come a point when it becomes too much, and the golden goose, is gone.
Right. So
You can only push people so far. I
right.
guess is just before they're like fed up
And
with it.
my other question for you before we go for the night here is so and I don't know I didn't see this in the article, but I'm going to assume, and I know you're not supposed to assume things. I'm assuming the NFL is making it mandatory for players to have these things on their helmets. Do
Oh,
you
right.
think
Yeah.
it is right for the NFL to say you have to put a phrase or you have to put a victim's name on your helmet?
Me personally, I do not think it's right. If you do not believe in that, I don't think you should be forced to do that. Now, on the flip side of that, they're the employer, so they have the ability to say you're going to do these things. The difference is, I don't think there's a lot of employers, and people may correct me in this, but I don't think there's a lot of employers that will force you to take a political stance or a social justice stance when you're working for them. In fact, I think it's the opposite of that. I'm really, media policies. I shouldn't talk to the media in my job. I shouldn't make comments about that. I can't talk about politics at work. To me,
Right,
most employers don't want you to do those things. So
right, exactly.
I feel like it's probably not okay from my perspective. And I would say that you could have a lot of players thinking, this is not what I want to do, regardless of their beliefs. They would just say, I don't think it's right for you to be able to do this, even if they would agree with whatever the statement might be.
And do you think this could lead to some players eventually saying, we're not doing this, the league fining them, and then there's some lawsuits that come?
I think it could. Yeah, I think it could for sure.
I mean, and I'm bringing these things up, because I really think the NFL is going down a road where they could actually have internally tear their league apart.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so, and we can get into this later. If that happens, you know who just made a purchase that will benefit from that?
That would be The Rock,
The
who bought the
Rock and the
XFL. Yeah,
XFL.
yeah,
Because I'll tell you right now, if players eventually take a stand and say, I understand what this is about, but I don't want it on my helmet.
yeah.
And they kind of blackball those players and release those players. They're going to be quality players. You don't think that XFL is going to take those players?
Oh, they'll snatch him up right away. To
Because
me,
I'll
The
tell you right
Rock is a
now,
guy who, you know, uh, we make jokes about it sometimes about, the old wrestling maxims and things like that. This guy's turned himself into an absolutely successful businessman.
right,
He's a really smart guy, and I think he has a better plan to make the XFL succeed than the last two attempts ever had. He wouldn't have bought it if he didn't think so. That's
right.
my feeling. So yeah, if you see that and you see those guys leaving the NFL, yeah, he could make some overtures, get those guys in the league, make the XFL relevant. I know that may sound kind of ridiculous to some, but I don't think it is. I really don't think it's that far fetched.
I really think right now, if you would want to start a challenging league to any major sport, now is the time.
Yeah,
Now is the time. No, because you are going to be able to get certain sponsorships and a certain faction of fans that just want to see entertainment, and actually you could make your league viable. And once you get a group and get a little bit of a root system going, you can challenge the other leagues.
yeah,
So I hope this gets out to leagues. We are not saying that we're not saying we're against change. We've said this numerous times. We're bringing a point of view of you have to be careful. You are opening the door to destroying your brands. because the common person wants to come home from work, sit down, have some food, have a couple of drinks, watch a football game, watch a basketball game, watch a baseball game, and
Hmm.
forget about what's going on in the world.
Right.
They don't want to be reminded about it.
Right. And I know that some people will say, well, that's the point. We want to make sure that they see that, and everybody's watching this. It's a huge platform. I get it, but like you said, right, wrong, or indifferent, those people are going out there. They're watching those games. They don't want to see or hear about those other things because they hear about it all the time otherwise.
Right.
And so they want that form of escapism, if you want to call it that. Watch a sporting event, Yeah.
Here's the thing: if people are saying, "Oh, we need to make people aware of this," blah blah blah. We are in the most social media, and the most widespread media coverage ever in the history of the world.
Oh yeah.
Everybody knows what's going on.
Yeah. Yeah.
You,
I mean, unless
you
you're a hermit in the middle of the
right.
desert, you know what's going on.
If
Yeah.
you have a smartphone, you know what's going on.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. We're not in the 1980s where we don't know what's going on, even a couple of, you know, cities over.
Yeah. Yeah.
We know what's going on all the way across the world.
Probably too much.
Right.
I mean, really, it's just
That's the thing.
inundated with information at this point,
You know, if
so it even almost becomes drowned out at some point.
like if we didn't know what was going on and they were doing this stuff, I'd probably be okay with it. I'd be okay, yeah, sure, okay, I get it. You want to get the word out. Guess what? The word is already out. And again, we
Yeah,
talked about this last
exactly.
week. Is this helping you gain support for your league, or is it turning people off? Like not off to it, but just like numbing, and so they're zoning out about it and they're done. Again, we're not saying that's right to do that, but that's the human nature. You know,
Hmm.
if you get nagged at about something for so long, you eventually tune that individual out. And it's unfortunate because I think that's kind of what's going to start to happen here. And it kind of already is in certain areas. So, yes, should we get the change out there? Sure. But we have to be careful how much you inundate people with it. And I think right now these leagues are starting to cross the line where
Yeah.
people are going to start to, you know, protest by not watching, not buying
Right.
merchandise. I mean, it's already shown the article I referenced earlier. 38% of NBA fans are not watching games anymore.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That is a huge impact on your league. I mean, a huge impact.
And right now it's huge because your TV contracts are going to be tied in to viewership because you
Hmm.
don't have fans in the stands.
Right. So there
So,
you go. That's your vote on your league. Are you
right,
watching it or not? Well, if all those people are not watching it, you're that's a vote against it because you're not watching it. So
right.
um,
So, and again,
that doesn't play into it. Yeah.
one last time, this show, myself and the Wolf, we are not saying that we are against
Right.
the movement.
Make sure people know that. Yep.
We're bringing a point of view that could hurt professional sports and hurt it a lot
Right.
if we're not careful on how we present the change. Um, so eh, I really think, again, people make these snap decisions on things instead of sitting back and being like, okay, let's all just get around and let's have meetings and let's talk about this. You know, decisions are made so quickly nowadays, and then we're afraid when we're like, oh, made a mistake. We talked about this before. Make a mistake.
Right.
Oh, we just have to go with it now. No, you don't. You, hey, you know what? We reviewed this again because we got more information, so we're gonna do this instead.
Oh my God. You can admit that you're wrong or you made a hasty decision. It is actually okay to do that.
So
Despite what the media may end up saying about you afterwards.
right, exactly. So all right. Well, Lone, we have gone way over time
Yeah,
tonight.
we went way over.
That's okay. We got through a lot of stuff.
Yes.
Very exciting week coming up. We have the NFL 1 week away. So next week
Yep.
we will do we'll preview the first games. Yeah, and then maybe do some you know some pick'ems
Mm-hmm.
and kind of keep a record against each other and see who's
Oh
better.
yeah, get a little competitive here. Yeah, that'd be good. Yeah, yeah.
So, all right. Well, everybody, thank you for listening. If you're listening to this recorded, thank you for downloading and listening. Again, all of our episodes are available on YouTube, so you can catch us there or catch us right here on Podbean. Again, thank you, everybody. Have a good week, and we will talk to you next week for NFL preview week 1. Thank you
Very
and
good.
have a great night.
Have a great night.